we're going to look at 5 players each that we think the Maple Leafs could be interested in. Who are the guys who they're going to scout? Who have they been taking a look at? So I've got my 5. You got your 5. Why don't you go through your 5 guys, then I'll go through my 5 guys.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with the defenseman, Luke Shen. I watching that game against the Sabres, they desperately need a guy that has a little bit more grit to his game, a little more. I'm not going to get pushed around. I'm actually going to do the pushing for a
Yeah.
change. I think Luke Shen is that guy. He's got experience in the playoffs, even though he didn't play a top 4 role with the Lightning. He still provided them with the depth that they needed to win the Stanley Cup. So Luke Shen is. I'm not going in a particular order, but he's the first name that came to my mind. Another name that I've heard and I'm kind of intrigued in is Conor Garland. This is a guy who it's a little surprising to hear his name out there considering he is in his first season with the Canucks after that big trade with Arizona. But
Yeah.
he's the type of guy that I think could get that second line going. He might he has a little more caution in that has another 4 seasons left on his deal at just under $5 million for a second line guy. That's not too shabby. JT Miller, kind of in that same vein where it's not just a rental option, but it's a guy that I think provides a little more versatility to the game. Maybe brings a little more of that Michael Bunting style that I think that second line needs. I think an elevated, obviously, considering how he has played.
Yeah, he's just a play driver. I mean, that guy's just a rock star
Yeah.
out there. He plays the game hard. Like you talk about, if there's a game like last night where there's no pulse, he'll bring the pulse and he'll bring it out of people. And also was kind of missing last night, and that's the edge that he could bring to this team. And they need some mean, nasty players. So I'm with you on that one.
Another guy's Tyler Mott. Uh, some might not think he's a sexy name, but he's a good depth player. He's a good penalty killer. I just think if you're looking to, make sure that your depth below the lineup is solid, he's a guy that you can look at there. And then another one, it seems like a little out there, but I'm going to say Brock Besser because I think
Mm.
if you add a Brock Besser like that's another pure shooter that you could add to the power play that you can. I mean, the power play hasn't looked great lately. Like it's struggled the last few games. I mean, this is not a reason why you go out and get Brock Besser because your power play
No.
doesn't look good the last few games.
But
But I think
if for those who aren't counting, that is 6 games in a row that this power play has not scored a goal, by the way. Right, they're 0 for the last 13, I want to say.
yeah, and Frank Seravalli seems to think that Brock Besser could be dangled out there. He's a pending RFA.
So his deal, his issue is like similar to Line, where he's got his AAV is only like in the 6 million range, but
Yeah.
he's got himself a hell of a qualifier. So if you want to retain his rights, it's a very expensive qualifying offer to do that. So that's why Vancouver might be interested in moving on, because they're not sure if they're going to want to qualify it. That also kind of brings his trade value down too. So I've heard his name out there that they might be willing to listen on him, but if you got to take a hit because his QO is so high, I don't know. I don't know if you make that trade because he's a solid player, man. I mean,
Oh, he's an excellent player.
he can score goals. I mean, a little bit of a down year, I guess. Got 30 points in 49 games, 10 goals. You certainly would want a little bit more out of Brock Besser, but early on this season, that team was in such a funk. I mean, he's only shooting. What's he got? 10% shooting percentage. What's his career at? Let me just check quickly. Shooting percentage for his career is 13%. So, he's shooting, well below 3 full percentage points below his shooting percentage, his career shooting percentage. So, yeah, I think
That's
he's
why
somebody
that's
he'd be a buy low candidate. That's for sure.
yeah.
For Toronto,
And
buy
for
low candidate.
Vancouver, I just don't know if Vancouver would want to sell low on him either. But I
Yeah.
think if you're a Leafs team that if you're looking to just strike rich on, really improving yourselves offensively, considering how at times scoring has been hard to come by when teams decide to just turn up clog the neutral zone and just really give a tough time. Brock Besser is a guy that will fight to get into the scoring areas. So
Yeah, he will. He will. He's got a bit of a sneaky stick too in the neutral zone. I'll say that. Bit of
yeah,
a sneaky stick. Just watch for it on Saturday, and you let me know if you think that's true or not. All right, that 5? Yeah,
that is 5.
that's 5 players for you. So we have 4 of the 5 are the same. Realistically, 4 of our 5 players are the exact same. So I also had Tyler Mott for a lot of the same reasons. I think he could add depth to this lineup. He's someone who could play all 3 positions, but specifically because he can also play down the middle. There's not much center depth. Remember, that was the whole point about trying to bring in Dzingel, is he may be just a little bit of center depth for this squad. But he got claimed, so it's no longer there. And Tyler Mott's actually a solid player. He's a bit of an energizer bunny himself, and great on the penalty killing, and just eats pucks for a living. Like, he literally just dives out in front of pucks for fun. Like, I swear he does that. So Tyler Mott would be a great player to add to this 4th line, just to kind of make this team a little bit deeper. Yaro Halak was a different one that I had at number 4 here. If they do want to get a goaltender, someone who's got a cheap cap hit this season. This is why it's interesting about Halak, though. It's cheap this season. I believe it's at 1.5 million this year. I'm just going to double check that. I believe it's at 1.5, but the problem is that I think he may have already played in that game, but he had a clause that, yeah, he has a clause in his contract where if he plays a certain amount of games, he ends up with like a $1.5 million cap hit for next season as well. I believe is the case. Some sort of performance bonus that he hit. And I think that it did end up hitting. So that's the only thing about him, is if you do acquire him, you're also acquiring that cap bonus for next season. And that might not be something that Toronto's going to want to do, considering we all know what their cap situation is already. But, I mean, if you're thinking about win now, he is a goalie who has been in a tandem and perhaps just some insurance there. So maybe he's just another goalie on the market that they might be interested in. Luke Shen is another one who I had that you had as well. We all know who Luke Shen is, played many years here. And he was a whipping boy when he came back. You know, he was the 5th overall pick and expected to be a top pair shutdown guy. He wasn't really that, but he comes back for a second tour of duty. He's only going to be expected to be a 3rd pair penalty killing hitting machine, and he will excel in that role. And even if he's just like the 6 or 7 guy, that's great depth, and somebody who has a winning pedigree coming off back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. So Luke Chen's a guy who I like as well. Conor Garland, you mentioned it. He's a player who you can put up there on the second line. He's a guy who the Leafs did have interest in, actually, before he got dealt to Vancouver. Reportedly, Toronto was in on Conor Garland, and ultimately they ended up making the move. The Arizona Coyotes made the move with the Canucks instead. So perhaps they circle back on Garland and try and add him to this team. And then JT Miller, of course, is going to be the number 1 guy who you would hope that the Maple Leafs are looking to acquire here. I don't know what it would take. It's going to take a lot. It's not going to be, we put out that video like about a couple of weeks ago. People are like, oh, there's no way that they're going to do Alex Kerfoot for JT Miller in the comments. It's not at all what I was suggesting. All I was saying was JT Miller would have to be part of the package. Alex Kerfoot would have to be part of the package going the other way to make the money work, is what I was insinuating. You would also get draft picks and prospects on top of that. So it's not going to be a 1-for-1 swap like some Canucks fans were accusing me of when they found it on YouTube, Dave. They found
J'accuse, Mike. J'accuse.
Yeah, they found it on YouTube, and they took me, they quoted me, misquoted me, and then just decided to, go Twitter troll and just throw shade my way. It's like, that's not what I was saying. But
That's how you know you made it, Mike. That's how you know you made it.
Yeah, I guess so, right? Haters are the motivators, whatever the hell that saying is. But JT Miller, like, in all honesty, would be the perfect addition for this team. Like, everything that he brings is what this club needs: goal scoring, tenacity, a guy who plays with his heart on his sleeve, kind of a chip on the shoulder type of player. He can put the puck in the back of the net. He can lay you out in the middle of the ice on the glass. Like, this is honestly a perfect player for a Maple Leafs team that needs, a guy who's got edge, but can also score at a point per game rate. So those are my 5. You had your 5. I think, well, the only difference was I had Yaro Halak and you had Brock Besser.
Yeah, I did not think of Yaro Halak just because I know he had a kind of a rough outing last time, and it was just like,
Yeah,
eh. But I mean,
he
I
did.
also I've also seen the Yaro Halak that got the Montreal Canadiens past some very tough matchups in the playoffs. So
Yeah, and he didn't do bad in a tandem in Boston for many, many years behind Tuukka Rask, right?
Leaf fans know that all too well.
Right? So, Yaro Halak does have that playoff success. I'm not saying that he's any better than Campbell or Peter Mrazek, but if they're looking for maybe a third goaltender, or maybe perhaps, you can get out of the Mrazek contract and bring in Yaro Halak, I don't know. But I thought that might be another player of interest that we could talk about here. But that's it. Those are our 5 guys. So JT Miller, Conor Garland, Luke Shen, Tyler Mott, Yaro Halak, and Brock Besser. If you think there's a chance that none of those guys is the acquired player if the Canucks and Leafs make a deal?
Honestly, I can't think of who else. Like because you think of like you're always thinking about who's the guy that the Canucks are looking to move. Like they're not moving their captain. Like Bo Horvat's not going away, in my opinion. That could change.
I don't think
Um,
so either.
like I'm just looking at what because when I did this, I went. I mean, first I went to Cap Friendly just to see who are the UFAs. Like I don't see Alex Chason as a fit. I
No,
don't see, even though he's an Italian, I don't see Philip Di Giuseppe as another
no.
option as well. On defense, Brad Hunt is the only. I mean, between Brad Hunt and Madison Bowie, none of those guys really scream to me as Leafs targets. Tyler Myers to cap it would make everyone run away. Unfortunately, I've heard his name, and I'm just like,
No thanks. No
yeah,
thanks.
and like,
Travis Hamonic, at once upon a time, but not anymore.
no,
Not especially since he's got another $3 million cap hit next season as well. If he was a UFA, maybe you could entertain it, but definitely not with that cap hit next year. So yeah, I would be shocked if
yeah.
they do end up pulling the trigger on a trade and it's not one of these guys. Like maybe if Tucker Pullman gets back. He's currently on LTIR. I don't know how long he's going to be on LTIR for, but he makes $2.5 million for the next few seasons. If they think that he could be part of this team going forward, perhaps they make a move for him. But I would be shocked. I think if they are going to make a trade, it would be for one of those 6 guys that we discussed here on the pod.